Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is Intervention Part 6. Enjoy. Being with Dabi took your mind off things a bit, and you took a moment to wonder why you hadn't kept in closer contact with him the last year or so. Oh, that's right. Because my ex told me I needed to cut everyone off because they were bad friends. Your brows scrunched, and Dabi saw the metaphorical black cloud hanging over your head, so he broke into your dark thoughts. Do you remember the movie we snuck out to watch? Huh? You asked, having trouble switching from dark thoughts to less dark thoughts. Back in training, he added. Oh, yeah, what was it again? You tapped your forehead with your finger, trying to call the memory forth. I have it, he commented casually. You do? You asked, pepping up a bit. Here? Yeah. Did you steal it? You asked suspiciously. What do you think, genius? He replied sarcastically. You hummed your disapproval, but got up off the bed anyway when he jerked his head towards the door for you to follow him. Mindlessly, you walked behind him down to the lounge area and just stood in the doorway while he set the player up with the movie inside. What are you doing? He asked when he stood up and turned around to see you still standing in the doorway. I don't know. What are we doing? You asked. You knew he wanted to watch the movie again with you, but you wondered why. You weren't used to watching movies with anyone. Any movie you wanted to watch was always ridiculed by your ex. I'm going to sit here and stare at each other all night. What do you think, hotshot? Dabi asked sarcastically. You going to sit your ass down or what? You looked at where he gestured to on the lounge and blinked a few times. Dabi's heart sank. He was really looking forward to sitting next to you for old time's sake. He had very fond memories of sneaking out to see that movie with you. He had intended on revealing his feelings for you that night, but the situation just didn't lend itself to his favour, and the night had ended without anything being said. Okay, he finally said in a hurt tone, but masked it with indifference. If you don't want to watch the movie, you should have just said something. He turned back to the player to stop it and take the movie out, but you quickly stopped him. No, I want to watch it. I'm sitting, okay? Quickly you stepped over and sat down on the lounge, and he gave you the side eye. I don't want a pity viewing. I'm not giving you a pity viewing. I just needed a moment, you said back to him, crossing your arms across your chest defensively. Sure felt like one, he grumbled, looking back to the player, but neither pushing it back in or pulling the movie out. Can you just push it back in already? You snapped a little, wanting him to just stop sulking and put it on. That's what she said, he said in a dry tone as he followed your prompting. Your mood switched immediately and you moaned as the player clicked back into the closed position, making Dabi swing his head back to look at you with surprise. What? You smirked. Don't make dirty jokes if you're not prepared for my reply. If you get stabbed in the side, don't blame me, he said with a grunt as he picked up the remote, stood up, and then walked back to you. You snorted and wrinkled your nose up, but you weren't exactly opposed to it. You'd always had a soft spot for Dabi. He sat down right next to you and cleared his throat. Lounge is small. I'm going to steal a bigger one next week. I don't care that it's small, you said, shuffling over to him and lying your head down on his shoulder. He smelled like charcoal, a comforting smell to you. If you ever had nightmares at night back in training, sometimes you'd sneak into his bed and curl up next to him. The dreams that followed were ones where those who had hurt you would be burnt to a crisp by his flames. The peace in those dreams was always accompanied by that faint smell of charcoal. Dabi heard your comment about the lounge and felt you inhale softly as he smirked to himself. That's how she used to be when she would sneak into my bed after having a bad dream, he thought, resting his arm across your side. Thanks, you whispered softly. He nodded, just happy that you were by his side. Hawks was very, very keen to move you to his place as soon as the morning broke with brilliant sunshine. Like most birds, he was up with those first morning rays and ruffled his feathers and stretched before getting out of bed. I'll go and collect my special goods today and bring it to my place, he thought as he shook his feathers under the running water of his morning shower and smiled to himself. He looked across to his bathroom sink happily. He'd bought an extra toothbrush, face cloth, and hairbrush all for your stay with him. He hadn't really thought out how long he was going to have you at his place, but he didn't really mind if it were for forever. His mind cast back to the night that you and he had slipped out of the training campgrounds and had gone skinny dipping in the lake together. He had promised that it was dark enough and he couldn't see anything, but he had lied. You were beautiful to him, every inch of you was perfection. Did you care if he had seen you? Truth be told, no. You knew Hawks well enough by then and you knew that he had a thing for you. It was a small confidence boost, knowing that the hottest guy on campus thought you were hot. He sighed happily and hopped out of the shower with a smile on his face, ready to go and get you from his lifelong friend. You had fallen asleep on Dabi towards the end of the movie the night before, so he had picked you up, bridal style, and carried you off to bed, then had intended to go to bed himself, but as he passed your bag of things on the floor, he saw your phone had lit up. He picked it out, and the most recent message was from your ex. Yet another nasty text. There had been missed calls from your boss and a few of your friends and workmates all asking if you were okay, but that one message he saw from your ex really got his hackles up. Unfortunately, he didn't know your password to get into your phone, but just as he was about to throw it back in the bag angrily, your ex called. The answer call button had never been pressed so quickly in all its life, and Dabi put on the darkest, most threatening voice he could muster and growled his threats into the phone. He described in great detail of how he was going to make your ex see his end. He made many promises, knowing full well that he had the contacts that could help track this A-grade arsehole down and help him execute his execution, should it come to that. But despite being heavily threatened, your ex seemed mostly appalled that a male had picked up your phone. The jealousy was palpable, and he was going to make you pay for moving on so quickly. You were supposed to be this meek little pushover who always crawled back to him so he could rest his feet on you. No one took his little plaything away from him. Whoops, don't mess with a protective Dabi. I would have put in all the threats that Dabi was going to do to the ex and make it a proper dialogue scene, but I think YouTube would have canned me for all the nasty things I put in there, so it was just kind of brushed over, but I'm sure that you can imagine stuff that Dabi could have said to the ex. See you in the next part tomorrow.